Welcome to today's video, guys. I'm here hanging out with Miss Rosie. She is being so cute. So today's video, as you can see by the title, is going to be about how I essentially fixed my hormones, and it feels really good to be able to say that. I actually did have a checkup with my doctor this past week. I got lab work done like 2 or 3 weeks ago to follow up. I had not gotten lab work done since I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's. If you are not familiar with that whole journey of mine, I do have a few videos on it on my channel, so I will link those down below. But basically, Hashimoto's is a autoimmune disease that affects your thyroid. And I've been learning a lot about it, and I have dealt with other hormonal issues simply because I have been into extreme fitness in the past. I was a collegiate athlete. Like, I have always put my body through a lot up until like the last year. Your body takes a toll, especially as women. We're a lot more sensitive to extremes like that simply because we're supposed to be able to bear children, and if your body doesn't think that it could bear a child, then it kind of like shuts down. So I'm really happy to say that my lab results showed essentially that my Hashimoto's is in remission. And that is like, I want to say that I knew that it would happen eventually just because that is what I've been after, but I also didn't know how long it would take or how involved of a process it would need to be. And don't get me wrong, I have made a lot of changes, but there are people that have had to do a lot more as far as further testing and other different protocols that I have not gotten into. And I also want to preface this by saying that I am not a doctor, I'm not a medical expert. The things that I'm sharing here are simply what have worked for me and what I have found to be common helpful things through my research, but I still have so much to learn. Again, I'm not an expert, but I have successfully reversed my Hashimoto's, and hopefully my thyroid's in a place where it might be able to even heal itself a little bit. And then I've also gotten my period back. I'm so relieved to have gotten my period really consistently and regularly for the last over 6 months now. And that was something that I kind of struggled with off and on for years. Like probably 3+ years, I got my period a total of like 5 times. And obviously that's a really big problem. Growing up, I had very inconsistent periods, and then eventually my doctor put me on birth control, of course, which I think is freaking stupid because birth control just gives you like an artificial period. It doesn't even mean that your body's functioning properly. But that's a story for another time. We'll have a birth control talk another time if you guys want. But yeah, because I was a high school athlete, I played volleyball at a high level year round, and then I was a college athlete, and then I was a competitive bodybuilder. I've just been demanding a lot from my body for years, and there were also periods of severe caloric restriction for competitions or just for my own vanity reasons. When I was in high school especially, I ate very restrictively and I worked out a ton. I did a lot of cardio. I would say that I had orthorexic tendencies and behaviors. I don't want to self-diagnose an eating disorder, of course, but I definitely did have behaviors and habits and thought processes that kind of aligned with orthorexia. So, long story short, my body has been through a lot, and I've spent the last year or so just really dedicating myself to restoring my hormonal health and my overall health. But I think all of my issues have kind of stemmed from my hormones. And this is not going to be a huge talk about Hashimoto's in particular. If you are looking for that, I will link some great resources in the description box. I don't have any cookies for you. Oh, you want belly rubs? I will link some resources in the description box. I just finished listening to a really helpful podcast that I think would be a good place to start, and then some other resources like books and stuff. I think it's really important to be educated on how to go about your health things. But I do want to say one thing quick about Hashimoto's is the podcast I was listening today gave us a statistic that up to 27% of the US population has Hashimoto's in some form. It might be very early stages, but 27% have some sort of autoimmune response to the thyroid, and upwards of 95% of people that have hypothyroidism do have Hashimoto's. So it's a lot more common than you think, and I would definitely give it a listen if you think that you have any sort of like hormonal symptoms or anything like that, because it very well could be Hashi's, and I don't mean to scare you, but I think it's way better to be educated and be proactive than to just live in fear and like hope that your problems go away. I've done that in the past. It doesn't work out so well. I do have my laptop here just to make sure that I don't forget anything that I want to tell you guys, but I'm basically going to go over all of the things that I have done in order to reboot my hormones and help my body heal itself naturally. I haven't taken any synthetic hormones. I never took progesterone or estrogen or anything like that to help my period start back up. Everything I have done has been natural, and I do take some supplements that I'll touch on, but again, no like artificial hormones or anything like that. Except now I do take thyroid medication, but that is related but also not. So the number one thing that helped me with getting my hormones back on track, you guys probably don't want to hear, and that is working out way less, like way less. So before I would train 5, 6, there were even phases like a couple years ago where I would train 7 days a week and rarely take a rest day because I was honestly afraid to. And then last year, there were a few months where I trained, or I mean, when I say trained, I mean lifted weights. I lifted weights 2 to 3 days per week. So I went from 6 days a week to 2 to 3 days per week. And that was really hard. But honestly, my energy levels were so low anyway that going to the gym sounded terrible. And I had like no motivation. So huge thing to do when your hormones are struggling is to go to the gym way less, put less physical stress on your body, and that also includes cutting down your cardio. I had been also doing cardio super regularly, but I essentially cut down my exercise to lifting 2 to 3 days per week. Aside from lifting, I went on a long walk every single day. On my lifting days, they were like 20 to 30 minutes, but on my days that I wasn't lifting, I would try to walk like 45 to 60 minutes a day. Walking is a really great way to reduce physical stress and still get some movement in. Other than that, I do yoga. I'm not super consistent, but that is a great lower impact, lower stress form of exercise that you can do without further burdening your body and taxing your hormones. So I transitioned my workouts from more traditional bro bodybuilding and even power building, where I incorporated a little bit of powerlifting. I transitioned from that style of training to more so circuit training, metabolic conditioning, and workouts that were higher intensity but shorter time span and could yield more favorable metabolic adaptations. So I did a lot of compound movements, a lot of movements that are using multiple muscle groups, a lot of plyometric movements, just things that are really going to get my heart rate up, get a lot of muscles working at the same time. I'd say the number one rule of thumb when it comes to exercising, when you're trying to restore your hormones, restore your health, is if your exercise makes you feel worse after, you are overdoing it. So if you are crashing after your workout, if you are feeling super fatigued and drained, if you're not able to recover normally, then you are doing too much. So lighten up, go easier, give your body the ability to recover, give it a chance to recover. If you're just driving yourself into the ground at the gym every day, your body is never going to be able to bounce back. So exercise, even though it's really good for you, it is still physical stress on the body. And if your body is not able to respond to that stress in a proper way, then it's not gonna help you at all. On that note, when it comes to resting, where I also really prioritize sleep. I've always been someone that needs a lot of sleep, but during this kind of restoration phase, I was not afraid to take naps. I took like almost daily naps for a while, and again, I was just so fatigued that I kind of needed that to get through the day. But if your body feels like you need that, allow yourself to nap. Make time for yourself to nap. Depending on the severity of your issue, taking a nap is gonna do way more favors for your health than going to the gym. So if you have to cut out a gym session in order to give your body the rest that it needs, allow yourself to do that and don't feel guilty about it, because your health is way more important. On that note, managing your stress from other sources is really important as well. So whether that's school, work, relationships, personal stuff, whatever it might be, if things are stressing you out constantly, that is again going to make your hormone situation worse. If your cortisol is constantly high, if you're taxing your adrenals through being chronically stressed, that is going to wreak havoc on your hormones too. Meditating every day is really good. I like to use the app Headspace. Even start with 5 minutes, and Headspace will walk you through how to meditate. If you've never done it before, I know it can seem kind of intimidating, but Headspace will walk you through like everything you need to know, why it works, why it's helpful, how to implement it, and all that good stuff. And at this point, I'm not quite as consistent with my meditation, but I was really consistent with it for a while, and it really did help, so I need to get back to it. Another thing that's super helpful is journaling, as well as positive affirmations and positive self-talk, because if you believe that you are on the path to health and you believe that you can recover, that will help align everything inside of you to allow that to happen. If you don't believe that you're gonna get better, if you believe that this is gonna be your life forever, then odds are you probably won't recover, because you don't believe that you can. And I think the mental piece is often really overlooked. Along the lines of managing your mental and emotional stress is having some sort of self-care menu. So what I did when I first decided I was going to work on managing my stress was I made a list of all of the things that I can do that help me feel less stressed. So meditating, journaling, going for walks, I got a coloring book, cooking, let's see, what else? Taking baths, stretching, yoga, reading a book for pleasure, things like that that really help you like calm and recenter your brain are going to be really helpful. And then last thing to help you with your body's response to stress are adaptogens. I'll just pop a list on the screen of common adaptogens that you guys can check out. You kind of have to trial and error which ones work best for you. Personally, I've taken ashwagandha, I've taken L-theanine, and then I've also taken reishi mushrooms. So once you are able to reduce your physical stress and your mental stress, another big factor is your diet, and I cannot overstate the importance of diet. I think that this is one of, again, the most important things that has helped me be able to get my hormones back. And as far as things that you need to like cut out or eat more of, that can be very individual. But I will say that if you are someone who has been over exercising, perhaps under eating, if you have been really focused on losing body fat in the past, maybe you're a competitor, or maybe you've just been doing it for your lifestyle, then it's very likely that you need to add body fat. When I really committed to fixing my hormones, I started eating a lot more carbs, a lot more healthy fats. I was exercising less too, so obviously I gained body fat. And that was necessary. I had to get to a higher percentage of body fat than I was comfortable with in order to get my period back. And I'm very confident that I wouldn't have gotten it if I had constantly tried to keep my body at the same body fat that it had been, at a level that was still considered lean, where I still had abs. I just had to let go of that stuff for the sake of my health. I know that kind of sucks to hear, especially if you're someone that has worked really hard on your physique over the years. But again, health comes first. So don't be afraid to eat more carbs, eat more fats, and let your body increase its body fat, because again, we're women. Our bodies are not meant to be super lean. Our bodies are meant to be able to carry children and produce humans. So we're not supposed to be super lean. We're supposed to have a little softness. We're supposed to have, you know, a little bit of a soft belly on us. Like, we're not supposed to walk around with shredded six packs, especially year round. And you have to be okay with letting go of that lean ideal that we all kind of have grown to accept as like the definition of fitness, when it's really not the definition of health. Why are you in a mood all of a sudden? You were napping until I started recording. As far as specific things for foods, I personally cut out gluten, and I'm pretty strict about it, and that has been really helpful. Pretty much every single person with Hashis should be cutting out gluten. If you have any sort of food intolerances or sensitivities, that can lead to something called leaky gut, which is basically the lining of your stomach becomes permeable and it starts letting things into like your bloodstream and your body that aren't supposed to be there. So your stomach is kind of supposed to be like a safeguard against things that aren't supposed to get in your body, but when you have leaky gut, things get inside and that causes problems. So gut healing is really, really important for your hormones, and that's going to require a lot of trial and error. You might need to do some blood tests or just, experiment on what works for you. If you notice that a certain food always causes you bloating or discomfort or indigestion or whatever it might be, then don't eat that food. That food is causing you inflammation. Your body does not like that food and you are hurting yourself by eating it over and over again. Sorry, I'm playing tug of war during this informational video. So common foods that people often have to cut out are things like gluten, dairy, soy. Another thing to cut out to help out your adrenals is caffeine. So I have not been drinking caffeine for months and months now, and at first it really sucked, but now I really, really prefer it, and I'm actually super sensitive to caffeine to the point where like I don't even want to drink it because it makes me feel really crappy. So definitely if you are dependent on caffeine and you're noticing that your caffeine tolerance just keeps getting higher and higher, that's a sign that you are overloading your adrenals on like a daily basis, and that's not going to do your hormones any favors at all. Aside from cutting out foods, you also want to add in foods that are super nutrient dense, a lot of leafy greens, a lot of fruits and vegetables, and also be aware of what is in your food. If you're getting processed foods, I have really cut down my consumption of processed foods. I try to eat a mostly quote unquote clean diet, and I don't like to label things, but most people know what a clean diet means. That means you eat mostly whole, unprocessed, nutrient dense foods, and that has really helped me as well. And then I also buy organic whenever I can, just to decrease the pesticides that I'm getting. I make sure to wash my fruits and vegetables. I try to get like grass-fed meats if I can, always vegetarian fed chicken and eggs and stuff like that. I really am investing in higher quality foods that have more nutrition and fewer icky things in them. If you suspect that you have leaky gut or some sort of gut health problem, I highly, highly recommend that you take a digestive enzyme and a probiotic. I take both in one in my PE Science Symbiont GI. I take one capsule with my 3 biggest meals, and that has been a huge, huge help with my bloating, with my gas, with my digestion, and I feel like I'm actually able to extract more nutrients from my meals. And then I also have really been consistent about adding in other probiotic foods like kombucha and kimchi. And then last but not least, this is one that a lot of people don't really want to believe, but we have a lot of environmental triggers that are really bad for our hormones. So they're called endocrine disruptors, and usually they're chemicals found in things like plastic, like BPA is a huge one, or like fluoride, which is huge. Obviously fluoride is in our water. They add it to our water supply. It's in toothpaste. So I only drink filtered water. I use fluoride-free toothpaste now. The podcast that I was just listening to actually said that 8 glasses of tap water a day is enough fluoride to disrupt your thyroid function. Another big one is cleaning products. We've switched over to all natural cleaning products, and they are still very effective. Laundry detergent, soap, hand soap, even makeup, body wash, all of that stuff. I've pretty much overhauled all of our cleaning supplies, all of my personal care products and things like that. Even my tampons are natural now. It's really, really interesting. The more you dig, the more you find that the cards are stacked against us. Like, there are so many triggers in our environment and in our genes and in our food that it's honestly like not surprising at all how many people are sick, how many people are dealing with autoimmune issues, how many people are having hormonal problems, because our environment is so set up to disrupt our hormones and disrupt the way our bodies are supposed to function. I hope this was helpful to you guys. So my top 4 tips if you are working on fixing your hormones, getting your period back, whatever it may be, is number 1, manage your physical stress, decrease your physical stress by working out less, doing more light impact exercise, and also getting more sleep. Number 2, managing your mental and emotional stress. So meditating, journaling, prioritizing self-care every single day, and trying adaptogens. And then number 3, changing your diet. So taking out any foods that are causing sensitivities, adding in a lot more nutrient dense unprocessed foods, and eating organic when you can. And then number 4 is taking out environmental triggers like fluoride, BPAs, and other endocrine disruptors that might be messing with your hormones. So that is it, you guys, my top 4 tips for fixing your hormones. Rosie was such a great helper. I hope that was helpful, you guys. I know you've been asking for this for a while. Again, I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a doctor. These are simply things that have worked for me and that I have found in my research. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you found it helpful, and leave a comment down below if you have any questions. I'll try to answer them. But again, not a medical expert. This is just kind of my experience and what I've found to be helpful. And I think that will be it for today's video. Rosie says goodbye. She says, let's go play fetch, Mom. I'm so bored. And we will see you guys in the next one. Bye.